Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama-shloke Bhaktir-bhavati Naistiki Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnana-anjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri-gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya-manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Vayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna-prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti-vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, Easy Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 13, The Descendants of Dhruva Mahārāja. So, we are in the section 2 of this particular chapter, where there is a descendants of Dhruva Mahārāja are being described. Yeah, text 9 purport, please.
These two verses explain the verse in Bhagavad Gita 18.54. Brahma bhutaha prasannatma na shochati na kangshati. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. One who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he achieves pure devotional service unto me. This is also explained by Lord Chaitanya in his Shikshashtaka, in the beginning of the first verse. Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam shriya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidya vadhu jivanam. The Bhakti Yoga system is the topmost yoga system. And in this system, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the foremost performance of devotional service. By chanting the holy name, one can attain the perfection of nirvana or liberation from material existence, and so increase one's blissful life in spiritual existence as described by Lord Chaitanya. Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. When one is situated in that position, he no longer has any interest in material opulence or even a royal throne and sovereignty over the whole planet. This situation is called Viraktira Annatra Syat. It is the result of devotional service. The more one makes advancement in devotional service, the more one becomes detached from material opulence and material activity. This is the spiritual nature full of bliss. This is also described in Bhagavad Gita 2.59. Param drishtva nivartate. One ceases to take part in material enjoyment upon tasting superior, blissful life in spiritual existence. By advancement in spiritual knowledge, which is considered to be like blazing fire, all material desires are burned to ashes. The perfection of mystic yoga is possible when one is continuously in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by discharging devotional service. A devotee is always thinking of the Supreme Person at every step of his life. Every conditioned soul is full of the reactions of his past life. But all dirty things are immediately burned to ashes if one simply executes devotional service. This is described in the Naraj Pancharatra. Sarvopati vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam. Hare Krishna.
So this is the position of Utkala, who is the son of Dhruva Mahārāja. And this position, the mindset of Utkala, Prabhupada writes here, can be very beautifully described in Bhagavad Gita. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate para. And then Srila Prabhupada also quotes the first verse of Shikshashtakam, where there is increased happiness in the process of devotional service. What is the proof of increased happiness in the process of devotional service? The proof is that devotees are continuing chanting and expanding their chanting. Right? Increased chanting, increased taste in devotional service. So, and this is the proof that the same thing is not becoming the boring. Right? See, the success means you have to do the same thing again and again. Somebody is a 10th standard student, then they will be solving so many question paper again and again, right? Many question papers. But what happens is that with solving every question paper, or businessman by doing every business the same thing again and again, they are increasing their profits. Similarly, devotees, they are chanting the holy names of the Lord, the same name, but they will never get bored with that. And in fact, their transcendental bliss will increase. Right? This is called as Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. That automatically leads to nirvana, that automatically leads to material virakti, bhakti pareshanubhavo virakti anyatra cha. And this is explained. But this was the position of this great personality who is son of Dhruva Mahārāja, Utkala. He was always thinking of the Supreme Lord at every step of his life. And thus the dirty things were completely washed off, which is explained by Guru of Utkal's father. So Utkal's father is Dhruva, his guru is his Narad Muni. And Narad Muni, he explains this in Narada Pancharatra. Sarvapadhimi nirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. So the process of devotional service is very beautifully explained here in the characteristics of Utkala. So now we come to text 13, just 1 minute. No, sorry, text 10. So we are at text 10. Jada anda bahirun unmatta mukakriti atatmatihi lakshitah patibalanam prashant arji ivanalah. Translation.
Translation: Utkala appeared to the less intelligent persons on the road to be foolish, blind, dumb, deaf, and mad, although actually he was not so. He remained like fire covered with ashes without blazing flames. Purport: in order to avoid contradiction, botheration, and unfavorable situations created by materialistic persons, a great saintly person like Jada Bharata or Utkala remains silent. The less intelligent consider such saintly persons to be mad, deaf, or dumb. Factually, an advanced devotee avoids speaking with persons who are not in devotional life, but to those who are in devotional life, he speaks in friendship and he speaks to the innocent for their enlightenment. For all practical purposes, the whole world is full of non-devotees, and so one kind of very advanced devotee is called Bhajana Nandi. Those who are Goshti Anandi, however, preach to increase the number of devotees. But even such preachers also avoid opposing elements who are unfavorably disposed towards spiritual life. Hare Krishna.
Considering his own very advanced position, he positioned himself as a foolish, blind, dumb, deaf, and mad. This is son of Dhruva Mahārāja. Okay. But he was actually not so. He remained like a fire covered with ashes without the blazing flames. Sometimes we may see some fire, it appears like ash only, rock only, right? But the little bit scratching of the surface, suddenly there will be uh, ignited fire. This was the condition of Utkala. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, in order to avoid contradictions, botherations, and unfavorable situations, he remained as Jada, just like Jada Bharat. And personalities, Prabhupada says, personalities like Jada Bharat and Utkala, they remained like that. But that was not the position. And then Prabhupada describes that there are two types of devotees. That the Madhyamadhikari, they are on the platform of Prema, Maitri, Krupa, Upeksha. And even Uttamadhikaris who are Bhajananandis, for the sake of preaching, they will be on this platform. But those for the Goshtanandis means they take Ananda in doing Goshti of the Supreme Lord. Right, they are called as Goshtanandi. Bhajananandi means they take Ananda in doing intense bhajan of the Supreme Lord. So the Bhajananandis, they will just move away from the world and very intensely focus on the Supreme Lord. They know that. Sarva Karana Karanam. That the Supreme Lord is the ultimate cause of everything. Entire material world is going under the tight grip of the material nature. Sattvagun, Rajogun, Tamogun, they will have their own. And, he will just detach himself from the world and be away. But being away is also important for even the Goshtanandis, even the preachers avoid the opposing elements, Prema, Maitri, Krupa, Upeksha, who are unfavorably disposed towards spiritual life, right? So it is very important that uh, calculated Upeksha should be there. Calculated Upeksha means, strategic negligence. That is, it is very important for a devotee. Like somebody is there in the company, or sometimes some boss is there who is like Pakka Mayavadi, or some, coming from some very unfavorable background. Then one has to very carefully deal in such a situation, and the progress in devotional service. Text 11. मत्वा त्वं जड उन्मत्तं कुलवृद्धा समन्त्रिणः वत्सरं भूपतिं चक्रुः यवीयां सम्भ्रमे सुतम्. Translation.
For this reason, the ministers and all the elderly members of the family thought Utkala to be without intelligence and in fact mad. Thus, his younger brother, named Vatsara, the son of Brahmi, was elevated to the royal throne and he became king of the world. Purport. It appears that although there was monarchy, it was not at all an autocracy. There were senior family members and ministers who could make changes and elect the proper person to the throne. Although the throne could be occupied only by the royal family in modern days also, wherever there is monarchy, sometimes the ministers and elderly members of the family select one member from the royal family to occupy the throne in preference to another.
Yeah. So for this reason, being Utkala, even the ministers, they were unable to understand the position of Utkala. Right. Now Bhagavatam knows, but what we know, ministers were unable to calculate this position, and therefore they thought Utkala to be without intelligence. In fact, they thought him to be mad. And thus his younger brother, Vatsara, the son of Brahmi, was elevated to the royal throne and made into a king. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, monarchy not necessarily means autocracy. Right. If the descendant is not worthy enough, that's what we have seen. That, even Uttanapad, when he made Dhruva into king, he saw the personal qualities of Dhruva, he discussed with the ministers, and he saw the favorable opinion within the citizens. Three things that Uttanapad did. So, monarchy is always not the autocracy. In fact, one classic example of this is a very famous personality who is named as Father of Singapore. And he said, yeah, he was as good as a monarch, and he said that, the mango tree will give birth to a mango only. So my son will be a nice person only. Because I am good, my wife is good, my children will be nice only. If it is otherwise, it is just an exception. Just like the mango tree will give mangoes only. Sometimes a mango may be very khatta, and that is exception. Okay, so this is even the modern times. Srila Prabhupada quotes here. But in the name of democracy now, what has happened is exactly opposite has happened. Right? When we outdo the system of the Lord and try to reinvent our own system, what happens is exactly opposite. Now, what has happened is that in the name of democracy, there is so much of Vamshavad. I mean, there is so much of Vamshavad that although somebody is not qualified to be a leader, that fellow will be launched 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 times, in different avatar, and still the fellow will not be launched. So this is all in the name of the democracy. And therefore, Prabhupada was at times quite critical of democracy. Prabhupada used to call democracy as demon crazy. So some of the anecdotes of Srila Prabhupada. Text 12. Swarvithi vatsarasya ishtva bharya asut shadatmajan pushmarnam taketum cha ishamurjam vasum jayam. Translation.
King Vatsara,
Translation.
very dear wife. Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Translation. King Vatsara had a very dear wife whose name was Swarvaviti, and she gave birth to 6 sons named Pushpaparna, Tigamaketu, Isa, Urja, Vasu, and Jaya. Purport. Vatsara's wife is mentioned here as Ista, which means worshipable. In other words, it appears that Vatsara's wife had all good qualities. For example, she was always very faithful and obedient and affectionate to her husband. She had all good qualities for managing household affairs. If both the husband and wife are endowed with good qualities and live peacefully, then nice children take birth, and thus the whole family is happy and prosperous. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So wife of Vatsara, she was Sarvatvi. This is Swarvirthi. Okay, again a very good name if somebody wants a nice name for the child, Swarvirthi. And she gave 6, and she is called as Ishta, that worshipable. Now the same name will come for wife of Manu also, Shatarupa. She was at par in character and competence with Swayambhuva Manu. Okay, so Swayambhuva Manu will be greatly described. Shatarupa, it is being described that, and she was equal, character as Swayambhuva Manu. Similarly, Lord Krishna is described, and in one line Radharani is described. Lord Krishna is described as Bhagavan, this and that. And this Krishna is controlled by Radha, like that it is. Okay, so she was a very great personality, and they had these 6 sons. Text 13. पुष्पार्णस्य प्रभा भार्या दोषा चेद्वे बभूवतु प्रातः माध्यन्दिनं सायं इति हि आसन प्रभासुताः. Translation.
Pushparna had 2 wives named Prabha and Dosha. Prabha had 3 sons named Pratar, Madhyandinam, and Sayam.
Yeah. So the first son of Vatsara is Pushparna, and he had 2 wives, Prabha and Dosha. And they had 3 children, Pratar, Madhyandinam, and Sayam. Text 14. Pradosho Nishito Vyushtah iti dosha sutastrayah Vishtam sutam pushkarinyam sarvateja maya dadhe. Translation.
Dosha had 3 sons, Pradosha, Nishitha, and Vyusta. Vyusta's wife was named Pushkarini, and she gave birth to a very powerful son named Sarvateja. Hare Krishna.
So this is the descending dynasty. Pushparna, he had his 3 sons, and then the first son, Pratar. This is how the dynasty of Dhruva Maharaj continued. Text 15-16. Sachakshu sutamakutyam patnyam manum avapah manor suta mahishir virajan Navangla Sutan Purum Kutsam Tritam Dyumnam Satyavantam Vritam Vratam Agnishtomam Atiratram Pradyumnam Shibim Ulmakam. Translation.
Sarvateja's wife Akuti gave birth to a son named Chakshusha, who became the sixth Manu at the end of the Manu millennium. Nadvala, the wife of Chakshusha Manu, gave birth to the following faultless sons: Puru, Kutsa, Trita, Dyumna, Satyavan, Sa, Vrata, Agnistoma, Atiratra, Pradyumna, Shibi, and Ulmuka.
Yeah. So this is how the dynasty continued. Some of the names may be a little more known names here. Text 17. Ulmukas ajayan putran pushkarinyam shatauttaman angam sumanasya khyatim kratum angirasa gayam. Translation.
Of the 12 sons, Ulmuka begot 6 sons in his wife Pushkarini. They were all very good sons, and their names were Aṅga, Sumana, Khyati, Kratu, Angira, and Gaya. Hare Krishna.
So these are the 6 sons. Text 18. Sunita Angasya ya patni sushuse venamulvanam yaddau daushillat Tasya Rajarshi Nirvinna Niragat Purat. Translation.
The wife of Aṅga, Sunita, gave birth to a son named Vena, who was very crooked. The saintly King Aṅga was very disappointed with Vena's bad character, and he left home and kingdom and went out to the forest. Hare Krishna.
So while the dynasty was continuing like this, one after another, suddenly there is a twist in the dynasty. Now the wife of Aṅga, she gave birth to a son named Vena, who was a very crooked personality. So much so that Maharaj Aṅga was completely disappointed. That
You
Maharaj
are not
Aṅga was
audible.
completely disappointed and he left the home and he went to the forest. Text 19 and 20. Okay. So text 19. Yamasya Yamangashepu Kupita Vagvajra Munaya Kila Gatasostasya Bhuyaste Manmatho Dakshinam Karam Arajake Tada Loke Dasyubhi Pidita Praja Jato Narayanam Shena Pruthuradhya Kshitikshvarah. Translation.
My dear Vidura, when great sages curse, their words are as invincible as a thunderbolt. Thus, when they cursed King Vena out of anger, he died. After his death, since there was no king, all the rogues and thieves flourished. The kingdom became unregulated, and all the citizens suffered greatly. On seeing this, the great sages took the right hand of Vena as a churning rod, and as a result of their churning, Lord Vishnu, in his partial representation, made his advent as King Prithu, the original emperor of the world. But monarchy is better than democracy because if the monarchy is very strong, the regulatory principles within the kingdom are upheld very nicely. Even 100 years ago, in the state of Kashmir in India, the king was so strong that if a thief were arrested in his kingdom and brought before him, the king would immediately chop off the hands of the thief. As a result of this severe punishment, there were practically no theft cases within the kingdom. Even if someone left something on the street, no one would touch it. The rule was that the things could be taken away only by the proprietor and that no one else would touch them. In the so-called democracy, wherever there is a theft case, the police come and take note of the case, but generally the thief is never caught, nor is any punishment offered to him. As a result of incapable government, at the present moment, thieves, rogues, and cheaters are very prominent all over the world.
So when the great sages cursed by the power of their words, which are like the thunderbolt, they cursed this King Vena out of anger and he died. And suddenly there was a stop in the dynasty, there was no king. And there was no king, the rogues and thieves they flourished. And thus the great sages, they did the manthan of the body of King Vena. And from there appeared King Prithu, the celebrated, the Chakravarti, who is the original emperor of the world, Kshitishvara. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the monarchy is better than democracy because when you have a strong king, then the kingdom is very beautifully aligned. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example of Kashmir. Look at the example of Kashmir. Huh? Prabhupada is writing this purport almost like 60 years ago. And Prabhupada says, 100 years before, means around you can say roughly 200 years from now, the state of Kashmir was so strongly ruled by the Hindu king that, the citizens were very well maintained. And when there was a case like theft and other things, there was an immediate punishment, very harsh punishment. And therefore, people left the things. I mean, nobody touched, even it fallen on the road. But in the case of democracy, Prabhupada says that, all types of mischievous activities keep on going. And generally, things are never caught. The thieves are never caught. The case of digital arrest, right? So many people are being uh, mercilessly looted by this digital arrest. Recently, I met somebody, he lost 2.2 crores, right? And we should be also very careful, sometimes suddenly somebody is behaving little too much under stress. Suddenly there are too heavy withdrawals from the, investments. So the atmosphere should be such that, this very good person, and his wife was telling की माहित नाही प्रभूजी असं का वागत होते मागचे 4-5 दिवस फार स्ट्रेस मध्ये होते. And after 8 days everybody in the house realized that he has sold his land, he has liquidated all the investments, and suddenly he's cheated for around 2.5 cr or more than that. So and the thieves are rarely caught. So this is Prabhupada says, therefore at times monarchy is better than democracy. If applied well, it's better. Like China is doing far better than India. Of course, now India has a very good king, but in general, this is the case. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.